What's up guys, it's Steven here from Pals Power Ups. I'm going to go over my chassis design with you, the one that I designed for the Obi-Wan Kenobi Super Stunt by One Replicas. If you got one from me, this is like the overview video on how this chassis works. These little pieces here, okay, they are what sits under your clamp card, and they go down and push on your tactile switches. Okay, I'll show you where those go in a second. So you should get two of those. These are your speaker pieces. Okay, this end is a spacer. This end holds your speaker on this side and your pin on the other. I'll show you real quick how that goes down into the pommel. Once you get your speaker in, it's kind of glued in there, right? You got your pogo pad there. What you do is you put the spacer down inside the pommel first, right? That spacer prevents our speaker from hitting that bottom end down in there. Just gives it a little room to actually do its job. And then the speaker is a nice, perfect, snug press fit. Get it in there, right? You'll feel it start to go, and then you just kind of push it in with your thumbs all the way down. And again, that spacer is down in there, which prevents that speaker from hitting the bottom. This little tree-looking T-piece here, a little golf tee looking piece, goes in the bottom of your emitter section, right? So after you've wired up whatever connector you're going to use right there, you're going to run your wires down through with a little bit of slack down through the choke here. On the bottom end of the choke, you insert this piece, right, with the wires from that connector running through it. Okay, then you'll solder your connector wires to this Custom Saber Shop blade side PCB. Okay, once you get those wired on, and you can even use a resistor here, an extra one wouldn't hurt, but you don't have to. Then it kind of just snaps into place there. Okay, then you use a little bit of glue on the top. By the way, for glue, guys, when I'm using glues like for this, or for the speaker, or for the battery tabs that I'm about to show you, I love using what's called E6000. It's clear, it's transparent, it's kind of like a mix between a rubber and a super glue. It doesn't dry instantly, it dries pretty fast, but not instantly. And it's really easy to work with. I use Q-tips, I just cut Q-tips in half, and then that's how I'm able to kind of work with it. But you can get it on Amazon, I'll put the link down below. Anyway, back to it. A little bit of that E6000 around the brim here, and I stick it up inside the emitter, right? So that's our upper emitter and how it connects. Because on top of the chassis, you'll have your 7-pin connector from the Custom Saber Shop. Okay, it sits up here like that on top of the chassis, and then it connects, as you slide it up in the hilt, it connects to this pad and gives your emitter its power, negative, and data. Okay, now we'll go over the chassis now. This first big section here is where your battery goes. You got these special little 3D printed battery tab holders. The most open end faces inward, okay, and they just kind of, they're a snug little fit, but they're gonna need a little glue on the back end of the right there. I just kind of put a little glue on that back wall whenever I get ready to put these in. But what you'll do is you'll get these battery tabs also, okay? So this is your negative one, the spring here, and this is your positive one. These are really great battery tabs. I like using these versus the keystone holder. You'll just get you a little pair of pliers, right? And you're basically just gonna grab that little tab and you're just gonna bend it off. Comes off pretty easy. Just work it back and forth like that. And this is what you'll do. So you'll solder, this is the positive one, on the back of it, you'll just solder a positive line there, right? Then you're gonna slide that down, okay? The wire should be facing the back side of it, the most closed end. The little tab part should be on the most open end. But you'll slide it all the way down inside there, like that. We got a nice, beautiful battery tab there. Your positive wire will be running down off the bottom there. Now my suggestion is that you do 2 positive wires and you kind of twist them together and solder there. You'll have one long one, okay, because it's going to go, the positive you're going to want to go on this end, all the way up at the top, like that. You're going to have 2 positive lines because you're going to have one that's going to run all the way up here to your board, and then the other one's just going to flip right through that little bottom hole there, and is going to be soldered to this 7-pin connector, so it gives your NeoPixel power. Pretty smart, huh? Then negative, see that one's so snug it might not need glue, but I would just use a dab of it, just a tiny little dab, just to make sure it doesn't come out. But that's how that looks. The negative one, you'll just need one negative line because it just goes to the board's ground. Again, you'll just use your pliers, get that off. You'll solder your negative line onto the back here. It again just slides down. I mean, it doesn't easily slide down. I made it a nice, snug, perfect fit because I wanted all this stuff to be perfectly snug. I'm really meticulous with this kind of stuff. But it slides down in there just like that. Look at that, guys. Beautiful. And then the negative goes on this end, right? And then, like we said, positive goes on this end. It looks like that. Beautiful, isn't it? Pals power-ups. All right, so this part's pretty self-explanatory. If you got a proffie board, your proffie board can sit down in between this groove right here. Okay, I'll get one and just kind of show you. It's not super tight, but it's snug, just so you can still kind of lift it up if you need to. But if you got one for a CFX, I'll make sure a CFX fits here. And then if you got a proffie board one, this one's, it might need shaved down a little bit. Some of this, by the way, your PCBs, like this one for example, when it's going in the little T-piece, and maybe even your proffie board, to make it a perfect fit, to get it just right, you may need to get a file, right? Like some cheap metal files, and kind of sand down the sides. This one's already been sanded down a whole lot, which is why it fits in here. As you can tell, this is a used board, which is why it fits in here too easy, almost. But if it was more snug, you know what? I'll just get out a new one. I want you guys to see that. Here's a brand new one, guys. Hasn't even been opened yet. So a brand new one that hasn't been sanded down will fit in there nice and snug, just like that. So that's where the proffie board sets in there, right? And you'll notice, hey, you can access the SD card and the USB port there, and it sits up above the pogo pins. But it's still the perfect fit. You can kind of lift it out if you need to, but it also sits down in there if you know, like that. So that's the way that works. Switches, okay, go on this side. The switches part go towards the inside with the wires running to the outside to the holes, okay? You'll use a little tiny dab of that E6000 there to hold your switches down. Once I put the glue there and the switch, I use blue masking tape, and I'm just gonna wrap it around there and make sure it's pressed all the way down flat, and then I'll leave it alone and let it dry. You wanna make sure those switches are sitting down low enough they're perfectly flush with this chassis. If they're sticking up at all, then they could catch whenever you slide your hilt in and out. So you gotta make sure they're sitting all the way down, okay? I think that's pretty much it. Oh, I'll show you the switches and how they work. These little plunger pieces. Let me scoot some of this stuff here out of the way. Some of these proffie boards. Alright, so the way these switches, these plungers work, you got these little set screws here on the sides of your clamp card. These little plungers pieces sit underneath the clamp card. See those two black ones there? Right? And if I just tilt this over, you'll see they just fall out. You can see the tactile switches in there like I talked about just now on the chassis, right? So then this is what they look like. 3D printed. You may, the ones I send you, if they're a little tall, if they sit up too high, big old mosquito. If they sit up too high, okay, all you do is just use a tiny bit of sandpaper and just sand them down a little bit at a time, the tip right there. Okay, just to get them just right. I got these black ones just right. I don't print them too short. I'd rather print them a little long, and then you can just kind of file it down a little bit as needed. But see, they just go in just like this. And they sit flat. Almost flat. I think I got them backwards. There we go, just like that. They should sit almost flat. They should sit almost flat, but you should see them stick up a tiny bit. And that's so we can still get that clamp card over them. But also it has room still to press down and press the switches. You can kind of test it. All right, and that's how it works. All right, so one last rule about this. Always extract the whole chassis out from the bottom. Never twist off this top emitter, because if you do, you could bend those pins inside there from the twisting motion. So only ever twist it. You don't ever really need to, but if you need to, you only twist this off, the emitter, if the chassis is completely removed, okay? But that's my chassis for the OBK Super Stunt. Thanks, guys.